everybody, so we're back talking some more Season 3 of Chucky on the channel with Episode 5. We're finally back into the swing of things with Part 2 now starting tonight, which is really exciting because, of course, I love talking about the show on the channel. I've talked about every single episode at this point, breaking it down. But I must admit, it's a whole lot more fun talking about these episodes when we can talk about these spoilers each and every week. So if that's something that you're excited about, talking about Chucky each and every week, make sure you like on the video and subscribe. You're always tuned in as we talk each and every episode. As you can imagine, after the last catastrophe Chucky caused, dropping that chandelier on everyone at the Halloween party, the media spin of it all was going to be pretty crazy. I do have to hand it to President Collins. He tries his best to make the best of the situation, giving this press conference, something that was a surprise to me, that it wasn't a one-time thing that he saw Joseph's ghost, now seeing him in the crowd while he's giving this press conference, causing him to freak out and walk out of this giant room filled with press in this really cool shot, I might add. Speculation-wise, even going back to Part 1 of Season 3, there was always that level of uncertainty on why exactly President Collins is seeing his dead son. Is it something supernatural? Is it all the drugs that he's been taking behind the scenes? Only for them to immediately confirm when Price shows the First Lady video evidence of Joseph's ghost disappearing on camera. Seems like it's a lot of supernatural stuff going on in the White House. Also, what a wild thing to capture on camera with all these different witnesses around. I wonder if anyone's alive to testify about this being the case. Regardless of the fact that we had seen how much older Chucky looks in the promotional material, it's still incredibly jarring just how incredibly old and terrible he looks now. It's night and day in the short time between where we saw him in Episode 4 and now the difference here in Episode 5, full-blown boomer-style Chucky. Yet despite him being so old, I do have to commend Chucky, given that his urge to kill still is there. Putting bleach in that woman's drink when she wasn't looking. A simple, effective, bloody kill. But this kill lacks in creativity. It's made up for by his entire demeanor following up the kill, this full-on grumpy old man tired of the world. The fact that the thrill of killing people just isn't even there anymore, so what's the point? Pissed off that he even has to clean up his own mess. While that's going on, since the Halloween party was a bit of a disaster plan-wise, Jake, Devin, and Lexi are drumming up yet another plan to try and stop Chucky. In this instance, however, it is a little bit more complicated. More or less, the plans in Episode 5 do involve the trio splitting up into doing different missions. Because Grant does feel betrayed by Lexi, so Lexi has to try and make amends so they can get back into the White House, while Jake and Devin have a little bit more of an unexpected journey ahead of them, which is definitely the more fun journey between them and Lexi's adventure. Kind of have to love the absurdity of the usage of the dark web in most media. Jake and Devin decide to get on the dark web and look up metaphysical experts in hope of fighting Chucky with voodoo on their own. An interesting solution that made me ponder that why has nobody else ever really tried to combat Chucky's voodoo with their own voodoo, but then I realized the majority of the protagonists in the franchise are children, or they were just too busy fighting for survival. Very conveniently, this does lead to Devin and Jake going on a road trip of their own to the exact same doctor's office that Chucky went to a few episodes back. Same doctor and everything, demanding all the answers about Chucky and how they can kill him. It was kind of amusing that they addressed the whole HIPAA laws violation thing where doctors cannot share info about their patients to everyone. Apparently voodoo doctors don't have HIPAA laws, so you can just talk about anything freely. Chucky's doctor just tells them flat out that he's already dying in the first place thanks to Dembala turning his back on him, before going on to try and explain all this stuff revolving around Chucky's soul in the spirit realm. How can you get to the spirit realm? It does kind of sound pretty convoluted, but eventually down the road it will somewhat make more sense, but I do think still overall by the end of Part 2 it comes across kind of confusing. Though this little side adventure that Jake and Devin go on in Episode 5 is a tad unconventional, I did overall like their plot thread. It's always enjoyable seeing Jake and Devin have more screen time together. Finally, after so many teases and being interrupted so many different times, there's no one to interrupt them this time, finally taking a big step in their relationship and actually doing the deed. And it's a really sweet exchange between the two of them as they're professing how much closer they are to one another and how much they love each other and nothing's gonna get in the way. Arguably, it's probably the nicest thing that's ever happened inside this motel ever. Because I've interacted with so many of you on social media lately, I know a lot of the people that are huge fans of Jake and Devin and their relationship going forward are going to be losing their minds at this sequence. So huge shout out to you guys. In comparison, Grant and Lexi's exchange isn't as memorable. Honestly, I literally just learned the other day that Grant has a massive fan base online, so that was an interesting thing to find out about. Of course, Lexi does apologize to Grant about everything, opening up a little bit to Grant when asking asking to start things over. Now, is Lexi kind of forced to get back with Grant because they kind of need him to get access back into the White House? Yeah, 100%, but underneath the surface, I do think there are some genuine feelings between the two of them. This relationship isn't completely fake, I mean. If you watch my spoiler-free review for part 2 of season 3, which I highly recommend to do if you haven't already, you would know that I teased that we are kind of blurring the lines a lot more into the supernatural realm in part 2. Some of that already has been showcased, but we really hammer that home. Some honestly pretty cool, gnarly moments. For example, President Collins watches in horror as blood pools from his secretary that was killed by Chucky. Unfortunately, we're reminded of Miss Fairchild being strangled to death by Chucky with the American flag. Then there's poor Henry who grabs a towel for Chucky and then sees bloody manifestations across the wall, an eyeball, and the cherry on top of the trauma sundae. Seeing flashes from when Teddy was shot by Chucky in this very room. I truly feel awful for Henry. I think out of all of the people that Chucky is imprinted on over the course of the franchise, Henry is the most oblivious out of the bunch. Especially between Andy and Tyler. You would think by now Henry would realize something is up. It really had me worried though when Henry goes to grab his mom to investigate what he just saw. Pretty tense. It wasn't helped by the fact that Chucky is lurking in the background trying to kill her the entire time, but he fails because he's just too old and slow. Like he even says, he can't get it up anymore. Is this the very first time we've ever seen a slasher villain in the horror genre be stopped by just being old? We've seen Michael Myers, Leatherface get old over the years, but they were still somewhat competent killers, whereas Chucky, he got old and he can barely kill anymore. Chucky's failure in this instance does prompt personally my favorite part of the entire episode. Chucky having to grapple with his own mortality, ready to accept that this actually is it now. So angry, flipping through the channels, roasting various doll-related horror characters like Brahms from The Boy, calling out the doll from Dead Silence that he didn't even get a franchise. Personally did kind of trigger me because I think Dead Silence is a super underrated James Wan film that I wish had a franchise or at least a sequel, but we didn't even get one sequel. But the best roast of all is when Megan pops up on the screen and Chucky just calls out Megan. Talking about Megan stealing his moves, flips off the screen, calls her M3gan. It's extremely satisfying if you saw the back and forth exchanges between the Megan account and the Chucky account on social media. I know Don Mancini and company have been teasing a sort of versus film in the style of Freddy vs. Jason between Chucky and Megan, so hopefully, maybe, depending on how this joke is received, we'll actually potentially get that versus movie. I think it would be pretty awesome. Another major reason why this section of the episode is so fantastic is because of Jennifer Tilly. While Chucky's so down on his luck, he calls her to sort of lament his frustrations about dying for good this time, in its own sort of sick, twisted way that only someone like Chucky and Tiffany could have. It's an enjoyable, messed up, romantic-y kind of conversation. It did crack me up how unfazed Tiffany is by Chucky saying that he's dying. I mean, she calls him a cockroach and to let her know when he comes back. To her credit, though, she gives Chucky a really good pep talk in the end, centered around the fact that if you are actually dying this time for good, you might as well go out in a blazing glory, be the biggest serial killer of all time, considering you're also in the White House. To be completely honest, I also have to give major kudos to Devon Sawa, who I think gives one of his best performances in this episode as President Collins. Despite the plethora of characters that Devon Sawa has played in the Chucky TV show, I think he does a pretty good job with all of them, bringing variety to them personality-wise. In this instance with the president, you do feel so bad for him as he continues to descend into madness. And after that major pep talk that Tiffany gave Chucky, I was incredibly disappointed by the outcome, but I wasn't exactly surprised by it either. Objectively, occupation-wise, this is Chucky's biggest kill yet. Even if I always expect Devon Sawa's character to die, I'm usually gagged knowing that his kills more than likely are going to be absolutely disgusting. Started out fairly normal, he gets whacked on the back of his head, then Chucky decides to just attack him like an animal, biting his cheek off and then rips his eyeballs out to seal the kill. A nasty, extreme way to kill Devon Sawa. I mean, it's not my personal favorite way that Devon Sawa has died in the franchise. Personally, I think his death in season 2 is my favorite, watching him explode. It wasn't already concerning enough that he just killed the president of the United States. It gets worse by the fact that he steals the nuclear launch codes. And the potential of what he could do if he just decides to launch a bunch of nukes all around around the world, blowing up millions of people. This is just the beginning of part 2, though. The episodes are going to get crazier and crazier as they go on. Episode 6, next week's episode, has one of the craziest endings out of part 2, in my opinion. It's one of the ones that I think is going to make social media go crazy. But never my thoughts on episode 5 of season 3 of Chucky. Make sure you share your thoughts down below. What did you think about all the stuff that happened in this episode? Did you like the episode? Did you not like the episode? Do you have any predictions on what you think is going to happen next week in episode 6? Make sure you share your thoughts down below, because part of the fun is to have that conversation with you guys in the comment section. Thank you guys, as always, checking out the videos. I always do appreciate it. Make sure you like on the video and also subscribe to the channel to update reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. For next time, I'll see you guys later.